So in this video, we're going to learn how to tell the time in French with the 24-hour clock. So I'm going to try to keep it as clear and as simple as possible for you, okay? So be sure to stick around for the video. Bonjour tout le monde! Welcome back to Learn French with Nat. I'm glad to have you back with me. So in this video, we're going to learn how to tell the time in French. I'm going to keep it really basic in this video, okay? We won't be going over it's 1:45, 5:30, 5:02. It's going to be very standard time telling in French with the 24-hour clock, okay? And at the beginning, I'm also going to go over a few sentences on how to ask for time and how to answer time, okay? I'll be posting another video in a few days on more complex time reading in French, okay? With the 1:45, 5:30, 5:02, all that stuff, okay? So let's just focus on the basics for this one. And make sure you stick to the end of the video because I'm going to give you some tips on how to survive the 24-hour clock, okay? All right, let's get into it. Okay, guys, so the bad news here is that you need to know your numbers to tell the time, okay? You need to know them up to 59. So if you're not familiar with French numbers or you're not comfortable with them yet, be sure to check out my other video, I'll link it below, where I go over numbers from 1 to 100, okay? So you can review them and practice them because we'll be using them a lot in this video and in using time, okay? Let's start simply with how to ask for time, okay? The simple question is, what time is it? What time is it in French is quelle heure est-il? Quelle heure est-il? We say it a little bit quicker, so it sounds more like quelle heure est-il? Okay? Quelle heure est-il? I'll say it one more time. Quelle heure est-il? Okay? I think a sentence we use more often in English and in French would be more like, sorry or excuse me, do you have the time, right? Usually it's not, what time is it? You'd be, do you have the time, right? So that in French would be pardon, which is sorry, or excuse-moi, which is excuse me. As-tu l'heure? As-tu l'heure? Okay? Excuse-moi, as-tu l'heure? Okay? Or pardon, as-tu l'heure? Okay? In Quebec, it's a bit of a slang. We add a lot of additional, sometimes unnecessary words at the beginning of a sentence. We add a lot of tus. So often you'll hear something like, excuse-moi, t'as-tu l'heure? Okay? It's used very often. Somebody will say, excuse-moi, t'as-tu l'heure? Very common in conversational French. Not in written, that's not proper French. The proper sentence would be, excuse-moi, as-tu l'heure? Okay? But just so you know, if you hear t'as-tu l'heure, is also very commonly used, okay? If you wanted to ask somebody in a very formal, polite manner, in French we use vous. So you would say, pardon, avez-vous l'heure? Pardon, avez-vous l'heure? So a little bit quicker and conversational would sound more like, pardon, avez-vous l'heure? Okay? All right, so let's get into how you would answer it. This is a bit easier. It's a pretty standard formula that we stick to, okay? There's no variation in this. This is how the formula looks like, okay? Il est blank, where you plug in the hour, heure, and then you would put the minutes at the end, okay? Il est 4 heures. Il est 5 heures. Il est 6h30, okay? It's always the same. You plug in the hours, heure, and then the minutes, okay? So it's important to note here in French that you need to use heure. Heure in this context means o'clock, okay? And we can't remove it. Like if somebody asks you in English, what time is it? And you say it's 5, you can't say that in French. You can't say il est 5. That makes no sense, okay? You need to keep the heure in the sentence all the time. You need to say il est 5 heures, okay? Or if you're saying it's almost 5, you would say il est presque 5 heures, okay? You always have to have the heure in there. In Canadian French, I made another video on this, and I'll link that in the description below also. We kind of contract the il, okay? So when people say il est 5 heures, often it's going to sound like il est 5 heures, okay? They're saying the same thing, they're just contracting it. I'm not going to get into it into this video. I'll link it below. But you'll often hear il est 5 heures, il est 6 heures, il est 10h30, okay? They're saying il est 5 heures. That's what they're saying, okay? Last note here before we get into the numbers. In French, when you write the time, when you're abbreviating it, we don't use the 2 dots. the colon like you do in English, we use an H, okay? It's incorrect to do the 2 dots, so you write 5H and then a 30, okay? So in French-speaking places, and in a lot of Europe actually, they use a 24-hour clock. And I know this can be very confusing for a lot of people that don't use it very often. And if you're not familiar with it, essentially we don't use AM and PM. We keep counting around the clock. So from midnight to lunchtime about, we use the 12-hour clock. And as we pass lunch and move on to 1 p.m., we actually start saying 13 and then 14 for 2 p.m. I'll show you a clock to explain it after. But the 24-hour clock, we keep moving around the clock, keep counting, okay? That's what it means. And I'm gonna be honest here, in my day-to-day at home or even at the office, if I'm speaking with colleagues I'm friends with, I am not using a 24-hour clock. I really just use the 24-hour clock to make appointments or for official business at work and so on. So if I'm making an appointment to the dentist or whatnot, I will use the 24-hour clock and the receptionist will give me the appointment in the 24-hour format. So it's important to understand it. But if I'm speaking with friends or with family, I typically stick to the 12-hour clock, okay? But I'm very comfortable with both, and I think it's important for you to be able to understand both, okay? So let's start with very easy ones. The first, midnight to lunchtime, okay? Very simple standard times. So let's remember the formula here. So we're gonna start with this one. Il est une heure, okay? Heure is feminine, so we say une instead of un here, okay? Une heure. Il est une heure. Il est 2 heures, il est 3 heures, il est 4 heures, il est 5 heures, il est 6 heures. If we do with a really Canadian contraction, we'll keep going with it. Il est 7 heures, il est 8 heures, il est 9 heures, il est 10 heures, il est 11 heures. Okay? Did you follow along? Those are pretty easy. So once we pass lunch, we have to keep counting. I like to show this version of the clock to my kids so they can visualize what 13 and 14 are on the clock and it's easier for them to remember. So let's keep counting in the PM. This is PM, right? After lunch, okay? So il est 13 heures, il est 14 heures, il est 15 heures, il est 16 heures, il est 17 heures, il est 18 heures, il est 19 heures, il est 20 heures, il est 21 heures, il est 22 heures, il est 23 heures. Okay? So now we have that covered. Let's start adding some minutes in there, okay? Like I said, we're not doing the quarter, 2.5 past. We're just simply gonna say a standard, straightforward reading, okay? So 2:20 a.m., okay? 2:20 a.m. is il est 2h20. 6:30 a.m. is il est 6h30. 7:40 a.m. is il est 7h40. 11:50 a.m. is il est 11h50. All right, we've reached noon, so we're going to keep counting, okay? 1:25 p.m. is il est 13h25. 3:42 p.m. is il est 15h42. 6:10 p.m. is il est 18h10. And 9:05 is il est 21h05. It's a little bit tricky. I hope you guys are following along. Okay, so what about noon and midnight? Okay, lucky for you, there are different words for these, okay? So noon is midi, midi, okay? Kinds of sound like midday, so it helps you know that it's noon, so midday. So 12:30 would be midi 30, or 12:05 would be midi 5, okay? Or 12:45 is midi 45. You've noticed here I didn't use heure. This is the only place where you don't have to put heure in the word, okay? So midnight is minuit. Nuit is night, so it's halfway, it means halfway through the night. So minuit, okay? Donc you would say minuit 15, minuit 30, or minuit 45, okay? Like I said, this is the only time you don't actually have to use the heure in here, okay? So I have 2 tips for you to help you work with the 24-hour clock. The first one is if somebody gives you an appointment at 15 heures, un rendez-vous à 15 heures, okay? An appointment at 1500 hours, I think we say in English. The trick is always subtract 12, okay? So if somebody gives you an appointment at 15 heures, you do 15 minus 12, and that's 3. So you know in your head, okay, my appointment's at 3, okay? If somebody gives you an appointment at 18h30, 6:30, you do the 18 minus the 12, that's 6, so your appointment's at 6:30, okay? You gotta do a little bit of quick math, okay? And if you're trying to give somebody an appointment, then you would add the 12, okay? So I need to give this person an appointment at 5 p.m. I'm going to say 5 plus 12 is 17. So le rendez-vous est à 17 heures. The appointment is at 1700 hours. Does that make sense? You have to do a bit of quick math there. Pull out your calculator on your phone, okay? And my second tip is if you start to panic and you're like freaking out and you can't figure out the 24-hour clock, there's another way out, okay? We have some sort of equivalent to the AM, PM in French, okay? It's called, here you go, you can see it right here. It's du matin, de l'après-midi, and du soir, okay? We kind of split it into 3 sections instead of just the AM and a PM. So du matin is in the morning, so that would be in the morning until noon, okay? De l'après-midi means the afternoon, okay? So that would be to about 6 p.m., noon to about 6. And du soir would be from, 6 to, well, nighttime, I guess, okay? So if I show you the time, for example, 2 p.m., in French, you could say, il est 14 heures, or you could say, il est 2 heures de l'après-midi, okay? If I'm showing you 7 p.m., okay, you could say, il est 19 heures, or il est 7 heures du soir, okay? If I'm saying 6 a.m., you could simply say, il est 6 heures, right? Because you're on a 12-hour clock for the morning. Or if you want to be super specific, you can say, il est 6 heures du matin, okay? I think it's good to remember these 3 words if you're panicking and somebody gives you an appointment and you're like, you want to confirm. If somebody says, il est 15 heures, you can say, tu veux dire, ou vous voulez dire 3 heures de l'après-midi, right? So that's a good way to kind of confirm it. Let's do a few exercises here, okay? I'm going to show you a clock. I'm going to show you some numbers. I want you to give me the AM and a PM version if you could, okay? So how about this one? You remember? Okay. This one is, il est 6h05, okay? At night, it would be, il est 18h05, right? Or if you wanted to use with the sentence, you can say, il est 6h05 du soir, or 6h05 du matin, right? Okay, how about this one? Right, il est 8h10, or you could say, il est 20h10, right? You remember? I'm going to show you that other clock to help you out a little bit here, okay? Okay, how about the next one? 2:35. If it's in the morning, you would say, il est 2h35. If it's PM, you would say, il est 14h35. How about one more? How about 7:20? 7:20 would be, il est 7h20 if it's in the morning, or il est 19h20. Okay? That's it for today, guys. I hope this video was helpful. If you need to review your numbers, be sure to check out the video that I'm going to leave in the description below. And I'll be doing a second video next week on more complex time reading if you want to practice your advanced time reading in French, okay? If you found this helpful, please press the like button below. And thanks for sticking with me. Merci beaucoup, les amis.